Hello, good morning. Our first issue is COVID deaths. Recently, our health minister in parliament has mentioned that there are no COVID deaths due to lack of medical oxygen. But during the second wave, we all know that deaths have happened due to lack of oxygen availability. Yes or no? In this context, why did our health minister make that statement? Because in the death certificates that are given by the states, this clause of death due to lack of medical oxygen is not there. So technically that means no deaths due to lack of medical oxygen. But we all know that these deaths have happened. That means if government says no deaths have happened in this way, we have done well as compared to others, that is diminishing the tragedy. In that context, official credibility or government credibility reduces. That's why some of the opposition parties have said that we are going to move the privilege motion against the health minister. What is the meaning of privilege motion? Privilege motion means if any minister gives wrong or falseful information to the houses of the parliament, privilege motion can be introduced. Next issue is Pegasus. Pegasus issue is there in the news in the last few days also. Please go through those articles and read them combinedly. Now, telephone numbers linked to 10 prime ministers, 3 presidents and a king allegedly appeared in the list of potential targets for spying using the Pegasus spyware. Pegasus spyware is a zero-click spyware developed by NSO Group. It's a Israeli defense software group. In yesterday's analysis, we have discussed about it in little detail. Please go through it once. Next issue is Supreme Court's dismissal of review petition of Vedanta company and Gova government. What is it? In 2018, Supreme Court in its judgment has said that Gova has fragile ecology. Mining can lead to huge scale exploitation. Gova is part of Western Ghats ecosystem. Western Ghats is ecologically sensitive and biodiversity wise rich. So in this context, verdict has said that cancelling the licenses of this is correct. But then the Gova government has renewed the license of Vedanta company retrospectively from 2007 before the amendments to Mines and Mineral Development Act. This Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Act made the auction of leases mandatory. Earlier procedure was different. So now auction is a transparent method. Before these amendments, Goa government has retrospectively given or renewed the license of this company, which the Supreme Court has struck down. In this context, again they have filed a review petition. In general, review petitions are heard by the same bench of judges who has passed the original judgment. What Vedanta and Goa government did is, they have filed the review petition late after the retirement of the judges who have given this particular verdict. According to Supreme Court Rules 2013, a plea for review has to be filed within 30 days of judgment. Now it's been 2 years, 2.5 years. That's why Supreme Court said we cannot accept it. Plus, there is no substance in considering it. Technically also, 30 days is the time. That's why Supreme Court has dismissed the review petition. Next issue is India's fight against drug menace. Recently, Ministry of Home Affairs has given the explanation in the Parliament regarding the India's measures to fight the drug menace. In India, we have Narcotics Control Bureau (NCB). It coordinates with various international organizations in sharing the information and intelligence to combat the transnational drug trafficking. We are situated in between Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle. Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle are drug producing areas, and India acts as a conduit or transit between these two areas. That's why India's vulnerability is high. In this context, NCB coordinates with other organizations under SARC Drug Offences Monitoring Desk, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa Cooperation, Colombo Plan, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN Senior Official Drug Matters, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, UN Office on Drugs and Crime, International Narcotics Control Bureau. In all these mechanisms, India is part. That's why we are trying to control the transnational drug crimes. In this context, what is the way forward? sharp vigilance, effective surveillance, public cooperation, source based intelligence, sensitization of field officials, and awareness among the youth, especially. These things needs to be taken up for further addressing this drug menace. Next issue is COVID 19 and cooperative federalism. During COVID-19 period, revenues of the states have fallen down. This has led to severe crisis in many of the states because we are facing health crisis in the form of COVID-19. Health is a state subject. So states have predominant role in going for health measures. So in this context, on the one side, revenues are less. On the other side, we have more expenditure. That's why coordination between center and state is important. The borrowings of states should be kept into mind. Special schemes are launched by the states, so central support is necessary, and effective calculation of GST revenues and sharing of GST revenues, especially compensation, etc., is need of the hour, and it should strengthen the cooperative federalism. Next, let us understand the editorials. First one is Mumbai floods. Every year, Mumbai region faces floods. So recently also Mumbai is facing the floods. Heavy intraday rainfall due to global warming is one of the causes. Other causes include lack of basic infrastructure like the proper drainage system, encroachment of lakes and rivers, lack of proper housing facilities, unplanned urbanization. These are the issues. In this context, especially slum areas, old areas, and suburb areas that are prone to landslides, these are more vulnerable. In this context, NDMA guidelines on addressing urban floods needs to be implemented. Urban flood, Mumbai flood is urban flood. As Mumbai is also a coastal city, it has other coastal vulnerabilities too. That's why it needs integrated disaster management to deal with these hazards. Next issue is COVID health package. Recently, Ministry of Health has announced India COVID-19 emergency response and health systems preparedness package phase 2. This package has been announced with the purpose of strengthening the health infrastructure and prepare for third wave of COVID-19. In 1980s, due to foreign aid, etc., we were able to build substantial infrastructure in the healthcare. But then, within few years, that has become obsolete and we couldn't use them properly. Why? Because lack of healthcare professionals and healthcare workers. Infrastructure alone is not sufficient. People who provide services through that infrastructure is also needed. Again, now this plan of the government is doing the same mistake. Yes, we need to increase beds, we need to increase the oxygen availability, we need to increase the ICU. Everything is needed. Essential medicine is needed, pediatric beds are needed, done. But then, what do we do without the health resources, human resources? So the urgent need is to fill the vacancies and then bring in more healthcare professionals and human resources. We should keep in mind the goals of National Health Policy 2017, which has proposed for substantial increase in the healthcare resources, especially human resources in the healthcare. Next issue is Taliban and India's negotiations. Now, do we need to negotiate with Taliban? India was hesitant in negotiations with Taliban. Earlier, we said no to the negotiations with Taliban. Now we are hesitant. We are using back channels. We are not directly negotiating. We are not going for open talks with Taliban. Why? There are many causes. One is not to antagonize the Afghanistan government. We have good relations. Now, if we undermine that and if we go for direct talks with Taliban, Afghanistan might shift its focus, might seek support from China. So that's why on many counts we are hesitant. In this context, we need to protect our civilian assets in Afghanistan. We have border security concerns. We have strategic depth because if India is not engaging enough, Pakistan will increase its engagement with Taliban. That might lead to future problems. So these are all the issues with us. That's why India should go for calibrated strategy. We have UAE-backed negotiators. So we should start negotiating with them, if not with the Taliban directly. Next issue is role of public prosecutors. Who are public prosecutors? Those who argue from the government side is known as public prosecutors. In criminal cases, public prosecutors play an important role. They argue from the investigating agency side. Now, if we look at the Stan Swami's case, the role of public prosecutor in repeated pleas in seeking the jail term or detention of the person is seen. But what is the role of public prosecutor? Public prosecutor should prosecute, not persecute. Not persecute to deliberately keep them in the jails. In Jitendra Kumar case, Delhi High Court has mentioned that public prosecutor's role is to prosecute the accused, not to assume the role of persecutor. In this context, there is huge under trial population in India. In this context, Supreme Court has repeatedly said that these under trials should be kept out of the jail and bail should be given, except in the exceptional cases, bail should be given as a norm. This should be followed, and this makes the criminal justice system more humane and efficient. Next final issue is OPEC Compromise. OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Export Countries. OPEC countries and OPEC Plus meeting has happened. Several rounds of meetings have happened. There was a contradiction in the stance between UAE and Saudi Arabia. UAE wants its production limit to be enhanced. Saudi Arabia was not agreeing. Recently, Saudi Arabia and other countries agreed. The issue got solved. So what these countries are doing, OPEC Plus countries, OPEC Plus other oil producing countries like Russia, etc., they are forming as a group. They are regulating the production of crude oil. So what happens when the production is balanced? Demand for oil, crude oil increases. That leads to more incomes for those countries. So that's why they are doing this. But what about the customer countries, let's say India, China, Japan? These are importing countries. What about us? So that's the question now. OPEC countries, they have their own concerns. They see that world oil prices are getting stabilized in the future. Crude oil is going to run out. In this context, they are also diversifying their economies. In this context, global energy transition is needed. Yes, that's needed. But they have to transition their economies also. That's the need of the hour. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much. All the very best.